All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Crystal. We are so glad to have you on our Spoonful. This is a new thing for Chronic Disease Month 2023, and it's a chance to hear from a lot of different partners on our theme of Don't Fight Alone. And this is, I think your organization especially speaks to this because we know we've got disease groups, we know we have the people who care for them, but we also have to think about the people who care for the caregivers. And so I'd like to just invite you to introduce yourself and your organization and what you're trying to accomplish.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. I love the name Spoonfuls, by the way. That's about all we can handle right now.
Yeah,
There's so
we have to give ourselves that grace, right?
We do, absolutely. So my name's Cristol Barrett O'Loughlin, and I'm the founder and CEO of an organization called Angel Aid Cares. We're based here in Southern California, but we operate globally. And we are, in fact, a mental health network. We are a support system for the whole rare, chronic, and complex disease community, including patients, parents, and caregivers, and the professionals that are serving our families.
So I'm going to mute myself in between so there's not so much and no background noise on my part. But where did all this get started, and what services are you providing right now?
Absolutely. So we started in the year 2000, and like many foundations in rare and chronic, we were very focused on the research and the science, and have found a treatment for a specific disease called Hunter syndrome or mucopolysaccharidosis. That's a disease that runs in our family. 3 of my 4 older brothers, David, Jared, and Randy, passed away from Hunter syndrome in the 1980s. They were 12, 18, and 19 years old. So what we have is this lived experience in the Barrett family of chronic disease, of loss and grief, and the cycles of hope and grief as you're caring and loving for someone with a medical experience. And in 2018, it became really clear that we needed to do more to support the almost 400 million families that have rare and chronic diseases, that we needed to provide mental health and emotional support services. So our swim lane is all about shoring up and recognizing the emotional impact of this medicalized life. So how do we do that? We do it through weekly support groups, monthly support groups. We host in-person wellness retreats. We have a proprietary app on Mighty Networks where we gather together patients and parents and professionals to talk about their experiences. And then we have a really amazing methodology called Caregivers. And the Caregivers methodology has, I think, opened up hearts in a way that the community's never seen before.
Could you say more about that?
Sure, yeah. So first of all, if you go to raregivers.global, you can see a whole overview of the thinking behind this methodology. You can also download what we call the Caregivers emotional journey map. So the basic premise is that we need to start from the heart in this experience, in these medicalized lives. So there is a moment in time where you notice a change in your loved one, or you notice that something isn't quite right with a loved one or even within yourself. And then you go seeking answers. And typically those answers come from the medical community. And there's this, diagnostic odyssey that we've heard about in rare disease and chronic disease. It can often last 8-10 years trying to get to an accurate diagnosis. But in the meantime, you're grappling with all these feelings, right? The fear, the anxiety, the shame, the worry, and you may even be thrust into a highly medicalized experience in an ER situation where now you're worrying about an end of life experience. Am I actually going to survive this? Is is my loved one going to survive this experience? And now you've got all these waves of, grief feelings that are descending upon you. And what we don't have is a common way to talk about all of these feelings. And so that's what the Rare Givers emotional journey map, it's an orienting tool on a single page. Any of the participants in our discussions or anyone that sort of takes a look at it in a poster presentation or in a hospital setting can say, you know what, that's where I am on this journey, but I'm feeling all these other feelings over here. And so it becomes a way to sort of hand someone that you're trying to have a conversation with. It might be a spouse, it might be your loved one themselves, it might be a doctor or even a psychiatrist or just someone that's there to help care for you while you're caring for somebody else. It's a way to say, this is how I'm feeling, and orient yourself.
That seems like a tool that maybe people wouldn't realize right away that they needed so much when they were in it.
100%. It's human nature. So we want to go straight to the fix, right? You have a set of symptoms, then let's go cure those symptoms. Let's treat those symptoms. Let's go into that sort of left brain triage mode of what we need to do. Are there any clinical trials? Are there any treatment options? How do I get to the right doctor, the right specialist? How do I get insurance coverage? How am I actually going to provide the care, right? That's this sort of list of must-dos. And right alongside that is the emotional impact. How do you feel about having to search for home care outside your family? How do you feel about the fact that your insurance doesn't cover that condition? How are you feeling about the fact that there isn't a treatment or a cure for this disease, right? And so the emotional impact is just as important as the physical impact. And what we don't have is a lot of support services for the emotional side of this experience.
And that's where your organization comes in to play, right? So that seems like such a very large need. How's your organization sort of focusing and picking where you're going to grow and what's the vision?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So it became very clear to us over the last 5 years that we've been hosting weekly support groups, that we've been providing our in-person and virtual global retreat experiences. It became very clear to us that Angel Aid cannot meet the need alone. So we actually formed a coalition. It's called the Rare Givers Coalition. And in that coalition are stakeholders, individuals that care deeply about the caregiver experience, that want to either hospital networks, genetics counselors, social workers, and then the foundation leaders, the industry partners, all of those individuals that are working with families and they're working with patients and working with caregivers have weighed in on the development of this central tool. So what we know is when you have a central tool, then you can go change a whole industry or a whole community. And the best example I can give you of that is in military and veterans caregiving, as well as in senior caregiving. We know that the realization came that we can't actually support the patient if we're not supporting the caregiver as well. And so there's very mature support models, and we're mirroring those in our rare, chronic, and complex disease environment.
Where can rare parents or the other people who are closest to a patient, where can they find some more resources and learn more about what you're doing and maybe connect with local support?
Absolutely. So if you go to two websites, angelaidcares.org, and I'll spell it ANGELAIDCARES.org, you can click on resources and click on events, and you'll see the laundry list of support groups that we're running every single week. So you can do a drop into a support group. You can also click join our community, and that will bring you into our private mobile app experience. We decided not to build our group on Facebook. We wanted to provide sort of a private sort of experience and environment where you weren't mixed in emotionally with everything going on with everybody else, right? So we have this private environment, and you can join and jump into chat groups and conversations there. And again, the focus is not on symptom management, disease management. The focus is on the emotional impact of these medicalized experiences. The other website is raregivers.global. So spelled like caregivers, but with an R at the beginning, raregivers.global. You can download the emotional journey map. You can download the discussion guide and kind of read through and walk through some of the emotions that may come up.
How do you personally manage being in this emotional environment? I mean, for you've obviously lost family members, but you're also caregiving for lots of other people. Seems like it would be intense. How do you manage that?
Yeah, I would say two things. So I do believe that there is a divine purpose to this experience. I do believe that the purpose of suffering is to marinate your heart. It's to sow the seeds of empathy so that you can be there for the next person on the planet that's going through a difficult experience. If you haven't lived that difficulty in and of itself, how can you actually reflect back that empathetic response? So we talk so much in our community about hope, but there has to be a balance on the planet, and the despair is right there. The hope and the despair are hand in hand. And knowing that, it sort of frees you from having to hold on to those deep, deep emotions and just release into, okay, this is a difficult experience. It's actually more painful than I can actually think that I can handle. But I find comfort in knowing that there are other families, that we are not alone, that we are in a community, that there are other professionals, that there's other patients, there's other young adults, there's other children, there's other families that are going through these experiences. And if we can just come together in our common emotional state and talk about those feelings, that's an incredible amount of relief. Even if we haven't found a treatment or a cure, we have provided relief into the community, and that's what Angel Aid is all about.
That's amazing. So if someone who's watching this is not a rare caregiver or a patient even themselves, but maybe we're in the orbit of one, what advice would you give them about how to support the family?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost is to recognize your feelings and to acknowledge that they exist. Like, feelings are feelings. There's no judgment around them. There's actually no control over feelings necessarily. They just happen. They come, they flow through you. And where the damage begins is when we're denying how we're feeling. So however you're feeling, get it out, either in conversation or journal it, or record a video that you may share someday or you may not. So many of our families and communities are going public onto social media and talking about their feelings. But even if it's a private share, or it's a one-on-one share, or it's a group share, just talking about it makes them less scary. So that's the first and foremost. If those feelings become so intense that they're taking over your life and your persona, and you'll know it. It's one thing to have a pajama day. It's another thing to stay in your pajamas for 2 weeks. Those are signs of really deep emotional impact. And you may need to engage with a professional. You may need to, think about reaching out to a community member, a pastor or minister, or somebody that you trust at church or at school or in the family. You might want to reach out to resources like NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, or reach out to Mental Health America that have instant support resources. Or you may be so deeply in crisis that you reach out to a crisis text line, or even a national suicide prevention line. Feeling that you can't actually handle the emotions is more frequent. Those feelings are more frequent than you would realize. And so you want to reach out to those support services. All of them are listed on our website under resources. So if you can't remember that list, just come to Angel Aid, just do a Google search for Angel Aid, come to Angel Aid Cares, click on resources, and we'll get you to where you need. The long-term sustainable experience here is resourcing yourself. So ask for help. And it's really hard to do because sometimes you've asked for help and people have left. They've left your friendship, or they've left your environment, or they're not able to cope with the experience that you're going through or your loved one's going through. But keep trying. I think what you'll find is that the world is different. The world is different in a beautiful way because of the COVID experience. We've all experienced, as a human race, we've experienced things that chronic families and rare disease families experience every day: isolation, disruption in home and work life, the realities of medical uncertainty, right? So that's our day-to-day state. And now the world is so much more, I think, ready to be supportive than we were even just a few years ago. So keep trying, keep asking for support, and ye will receive.
And if, say, we're talking about somebody who, maybe it's not me, but maybe it's my brother or my sister, my friend's family, are there some things that, other than saying, how can I help, which never feels very helpful, are there things that we can do?
Yeah, I think the how can I help is it's such a natural question, right? But sometimes it's not clear how you can help. And especially when somebody's in distress, it might feel like there is no way you can help. So I might shift the question a bit and say, this might be difficult for you. How are you feeling? And then literally just open your heart and say nothing. Just you don't need to fix what you're on the receiving end of. Brene Brown does a really amazing job in her TED Talks, talking about the difference between an empathetic response and a sympathetic response. Yeah. A sympathetic response is, wow, yeah, that must be really hard. Have you tried this? Maybe you should talk to so-and-so. Like, that's a fix reaction. An empathetic reaction is, I see you. That must be really hard. I just want you to know I'm sitting here with you. It's very in the moment, right? It's, I see your distress, and I just want you to know I'm holding your hand, either physically or virtually or emotionally. I'm here for you.
That is great advice. Thank you. Because it's also really hard to do sometimes, is sit in that uncomfortable space with somebody, but that's a great direction. Is there anything else? We've covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time, and honestly, I could talk about this for forever, but is there anything else you'd like to tell people about your work?
Well, absolutely. I think what we're really trying to do is, like Elon Musk, published the blueprint for the electric vehicle. So the whole industry could change, right? And that's what we're trying to do through the coalition work, is publish the blueprint for having emotional conversations so that the whole community can open up. And alongside that, at Angel Aid, we're providing the daily doses of encouragement and self-care and reminders of finding just those tiny little moments each day that you take back for yourself. It might be 3 deep breaths while your coffee is brewing. It might be a 20-minute walk. These are kind of the holistic healthcare practices that we know we should do: get more sleep, eat better, exercise. But those are ancient practices, and those are the key to a sustainable experience in a medicalized life. So between Caregivers and Angel Aid delivering those daily doses, those daily reminders, our weekly support groups, our quarterly retreats, we hope that we can just open up the conversation. We can help a community find relief. We grew from 500 to 5,000 families last year. We're growing from 5,000 to 50,000 families this year. And Angel Aid will support 3.5 million families by 2026. We can't do that alone. We have to do that. So if you're a foundation leader or you're an industry partner or you just are simply excited about working with us, please reach out on either website and we would love to connect with you. We hope to see you in our support groups and on our app. And I hope that you are not alone. Find that common experience in other people and start conversing about it, start talking about it.
Crystal, thank you so much. This is so helpful. I know how isolating it can be to get a diagnosis, especially a diagnosis that is unusual in your community or in a family, and to know that folks aren't alone is huge. So thank you very much for your work and for your good advice today.